Welcome back, tuning into today's video. We've had a really cold ECMWF run turn up overnight, so we'll have a look at that in a moment, and then have a look at some of the other models and see whether they're in agreement with very cold and wintry ECMWF run that has turned up overnight. Now, before I get on with that, just want to mention me advertising. There's video ads on my page at gazworldbiz.com. If you hit play on the video ad, you'll be supporting gazworldbiz.com, and thanks very much for doing that. Gaz Shop is open, so if you want to go to Amazon and do any Christmas shopping, just click through the Amazon banners in Gaz Shop. You can go to Amazon and you can do your Christmas shopping there as normal, but at the same time, Gazworld gets a royalty fee on anything that you buy. And again, thanks so much for doing that. I know that you do both of these things. You do pay video ads and you do your shopping at Amazon. I'm able to see some of the data that comes through in terms of the revenue that Gazworld is generating. So I know that you are doing this for the website. Thanks so much for that. It does mean a great deal because it pays the website. It allows me to sit here and talk to you via the website. So thanks very much for doing that. So this is the ECMWF run, the midnight run of the ECMWF. It was generated at midnight last night, midnight Monday morning, and what we're looking at is, well, we're going to start off right at the earliest chart, 24-hour wave. This runs in 24-hourly steps. It doesn't run in 12 or 6-hourly steps as some of the other models do. But this is for midnight tonight, midnight Tuesday, and we see that I've got this northerly wind coming down across the coast. So, yeah, as you know, it's been well forecast, well publicised. We're going to get this northerly wind pushing down. It is going to be turning colder in the next 24 hours. Then we get this area of low pressure developing to the north of Scotland. That's going to bring a mix and a risk of rain, sleet and snow on Wednesday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. And that's going to push down some slightly less cold air, really, across the country. But it's coming into very cold air. So I think more than sleet or snow, the main risk with that low pressure is going to be ice. I think we could have some very icy roads and pavements on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning as that rain moves in. I'm not sure there's going to be too much snow associated with that, but I think ice could be a real problem. Then the low pressure runs down the North Sea as we go to midnight on Thursday. You notice the high pressure sitting out in the Atlantic, so we've got this northerly flow coming in. The air's off the North Sea, so again, I don't think there'll be tremendous amounts of snow, if any, really, with that low pressure, because we're bringing in somewhat modified cold air off the North Sea. The North Sea is still quite warm in November, so lots of dull, damp, murky, wet sort of conditions, I think, as we move through into Thursday. And then on into Friday, we get this ridge of high pressure coming down across the country. This is when things start to get quite interesting, because then we start to send that high pressure up towards Greenland as we go through to Saturday. Notice this very deep area of low pressure developing off the coast of Norway. Some really cold air associated with that, but it's this blocking out to the west and the northwest of the country. It's quite interesting. That's starting to push up towards Greenland, and look what happens as we go through to Sunday the 24th. We're setting up the high pressure around Iceland. We've got this trough elongating over Scandinavia, putting down this very cold northerly wind into that high pressure. Now, it's mainly high pressure dominated, so I don't think there'll be a lot of snow around, but there could be snow showers on the east coast. But the main thing is we're pushing down some really cold air. Have a look at the upper air temperatures in a moment. Then as we move through to Monday, this is a week away, get high pressure building over the country, but it's very cold air underneath that high pressure. And then look where the high pressure goes next week. We start to set it up to the north of Scotland, start to pull winds in from the east and the northeast, and eventually as we get through to the middle of next week, Wednesday the 27th, we do set that high pressure up over Scandinavia. The winds are backing easterly with very cold air coming in from the east, so this would be bringing snow in from the east. And yeah, we eventually finish up with a proper area of high pressure over Scandinavia, 1,030 millibars, a proper easterly flow coming in, and there would be an increasing risk of snow. Despite the fact that the North Sea is not that cold, because the upper air with this is so very cold, there would be a risk of snow next week coming in from the east with that easterly wind. If we look at the upper air temperatures, well, this is the northerly coming down in the next 24 hours. That's going to be cold, and if we run through, well, we see that actually the -5 isotherm, which is where the cold air is, sort of leaves the country a little bit on Wednesday with that area of low pressure. That's why I'm not sure there's going to be much sleet or snow associated with that low pressure, because the air associated with it isn't going to be that cold, but it's coming into very cold air on Wednesday morning. So I think the main risk with that low pressure is going to be ice, and I'll be firming up on this as it comes into the high resolution time frames in the next few hours. Now for Thursday, that low pressure is sitting in the North Sea, and we're bringing down this cold northerly wind on the western side, so that could turn showers wintry in the west, but I don't think there'll be much further east. But I have to emphasise this low pressure through the middle of the week is a bit uncertain, and we are going to have to have a look at what the high resolution models are going for on that. But I think the main risk with it, as I say, will be ice. And the high pressure builds over the country, and not particularly cold upper air. But as we go through to Saturday, that's when we start to really pull down that very cold air from the north, with that build of high pressure to the west going up towards Iceland. Very, very cold air coming down over the weekend. There is sort of shades of 2010 about this, but very, very cold end to November and through December 2010. I'm sure you remember it. This is kind of a similar evolution to that scenario. As we go through to Monday, well, yeah, very cold air across the country with that high pressure dominating, and then of course the winds start to go easterly through the middle of next week, and we're still within the cold air, even though the North Sea isn't that cold and the air is starting to come in off the North Sea. The upper air temperatures are still very, very cold. So as we move through to Wednesday, and then finally today, 10 to Thursday, even though we're in a proper easterly wind coming over the North Sea, the air is still very, very cold. So precipitation coming in from the east with that easterly wind would definitely be snow with that cold air, even though the North Sea would be modifying the cold air to some degree. So a really, really cold and wintry ECMWF. But what about the GFS? Does that agree? Well, this is a situation on Friday with the GFS. The high pressure is out to west of the northwest of the country, are bringing in this easterly flow, but that's coming in off a relatively mild North Sea. But it's this point here over the weekend where the ECMWF is sending that ridge up towards Iceland and Greenland and pulling down that cold northerly wind. Does the GFS do that? Well, no, it doesn't. Look, this is the chart for Sunday, and the high pressure is more or less sitting over the top of the country. It doesn't ridge it up to Iceland and Greenland. We don't get that trough coming through Norway, bringing that really cold air down from the north. So instead, the high pressure just sort of sits over the country. Would be frosty, there'd be fog probable with that as well, but it certainly isn't the very, very cold scenario that we've got with the ECMWF. And going through to the start of next week, when the ECMWF was starting to bring in that easterly wind, the high pressure just sitting there over the country, sort of a mid-latitude feature. And actually, it ends up very, very different with GFS by the time we get through to day 10. Remember, the ECMWF has high pressure at this point over Scandinavia, whereas the GFS has it right over the top of the UK. We're really bringing around a west to northwesterly wind around that high pressure, to be honest. No sign of easterly winds there. So the GFS is very, very much milder, or probably not very, very much milder. It is relatively cold, there'd be frost and fog, but it's certainly nothing like the ECMWF. So I've got a big split there between those two models for the weekend. The weekend is the critical point, I think, and into the start of next week. The GEM, the Canadian model, again has that ridge of high pressure out to the west on Friday. Does the GEM send it up to Iceland and Greenland? It does a little bit as we go through Saturday. There's definitely a ridge there extending up towards Iceland and Greenland. And yeah, we get that trough coming down into Scandinavia as well through Sunday. So it's kind of similar to the GEM. It's not on the same scale as the ECMWF, but it is sort of there in that scenario. And there's the cold air, upper air temperature extending through Scandinavia, just off the eastern coast of the country over the weekend. So it's not far away. The GEM isn't far away from the ECMWF, but generally the GEM keeps the cold air, and it is very cold air, just to the east of the country, plunging through Scandinavia into Central Europe, and then going down into the southeast. If that high pressure was just ever so slightly to the west, maybe by 500 miles, something like that, we would be seeing a very similar evolution on the GEM to the ECMWF model. Eventually, by day 10, we finish up with the high pressure over Scandinavia, so it's sort of there with that idea as well, but we're extending the ridge down across the country. Nevertheless, we are bringing in somewhat colder air from the east. So there's a lot of uncertainty about the weather going through the weekend into next week. We've got a really very cold ECMWF this morning. That would be bringing, no doubt, severe frost and increasing risks of snow from the weekend on into next week. But with the GFS not agreeing with it at all, there has to be a big question mark about it, of course. And with the GEM sort of somewhere in the middle, that may be where we end up actually. The Canadian model could have it right, and sort of we end up with a blend of the GEM, of the ECMWF and the GFS, and the blend of those two models would probably be what the Canadian GEM is going for. So it's all very interesting. Don't necessarily be running away with the idea, but it's going to get really cold at weekend and into next week with snow. It's just a heads up, really, that the ECMWF is churning out these very cold charts. It's the best model, it rates as the best model, but it's by no means infallible. So we're just going to have to wait and see, and I'll obviously be updating it over the next few days, seeing how things develop. And of course, in the more immediate time frame, we've got that low pressure coming in midweek when we've got to firm up on the rain, sleet, snow, and particularly the ice risk associated with that low pressure in the early hours of Wednesday morning. So that's how it's all looking. Very interesting charts indeed. I don't know if you noticed, but I've hardly coughed at all during this video, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that's starting to get better. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.